Ah, Welcome back to Mapping the Self. I'm Selena, and I'm so happy today because I have Dages here. And I haven't had a guest in a while. This is the most ad hoc podcast ever. I don't record it for like 8 months until someone comes across my radar that I'm like, let's have a conversation. And I've wanted to have you on for so long, and it hasn't worked.
Oh,
And now we're finally here. This is Dages. Dages, do
I'm
you want to introduce yourself? Tell them who you are.
sure. I'm so delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Selena. I'm a writer. I'm a teacher. I'm a practitioner of somatic forms of philosophy, exploration, expression, radicality. My background is in dance. I have a lot of enjoyment in art and cultural practice, but most of where I find my expression these days is in writing and teaching from the body.
Mm. Mm. I wanted you to introduce yourself because I met Dages from Katona Yoga. I met her in New York when I was studying at the studio, and she popped into a breathwork training that I was taking, and I was just totally smitten with you. Like 5 minutes after you started talking, I was like, I'm in love with that woman. She's amazing.
Oh my God.
But then I didn't realize that you were in dance and all these other things until I
Yeah.
continued to meet you and follow you through the years. And I didn't think I was going to be able to do a good job introducing you. Part of why I was so attracted to Dagis's work and still am is because I feel like there's a group of us that are a little bit rebellious, maybe in the yoga space, that also grew up in very classical or very I don't want to use the word cultish, and it's the only word I can think of.
Old school, paternalistic.
There we go. I was like, now that's the only word I can think of, but I don't want to start off this episode by like offending everyone. But very old school paternalistic
Yeah. Yeah.
lineages, and went through real true believer dedicated phases in our
Yeah.
lives, and then got really disillusioned for a lot of reasons. And then some of us like found Naveen and then found each other, and now have been paving our own way in the yoga land and what that means to us and our narrative thread. And Dages, by the way, has a really beautiful series about her experience on her Substack that
Mm,
I'll put a link to,
thank
that
you.
I
Thank you.
related to so much. But I would love it if we could talk about this a little bit, this transition and experience, and yeah, what it means now, what it meant then.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you for bringing up this topic. I think it is something, it's very important. Um, as yoga, I'm using scare quotes, whatever it is that we call yoga proliferates into the late capitalist, widget economy, or I don't even know, like now the AI world of whatever yoga will become, as ubiquitous as it is, which in so many ways is fantastic. How wonderful that we have more access to practices that
Mhm.
connect us to our aliveness and hopefully undermine some of the latent anti-life, anti-body ideologies that move through
Mhm.
the same technology. But there is a way that something is lost and something is gained.
Yeah.
The thing about those really tight lineages is they provided a lot of answers.
Yes.
The thing about open source practices is they open up a lot of questions. And as I get older, I'm 44 now. I did my first teacher training when I was 21. At
Mhm.
21, I really needed answers to survive.
Yeah.
I needed to be able to hang on to something that was tight enough to help me hold myself together. But
Yes.
as I've matured, and that stability also from the practices it adheres inside of me. From that safety, I want to be in a proliferation of openings, of questions. And that's the very exciting place I think we are right now, especially in the Katona yoga sphere,
Mhm.
where Naveen, really, the founder of Katona Yoga, Naveen Mashan, genius in so many ways, obviously. And one of them is this devotion that she has to things being open source. There is no Katona yoga dogma. There's no sequence of poses. There's no, we always do it this way. Even things like, bent knees in a downward dog or flipped wrists. Not everyone does it. It doesn't matter, right? It's a world of evolving conversation, theory that's happening through practice, real praxis,
Yeah.
that is more than any one. Um, it's more than any one set of practices or even one philosophy. And so, yeah, we started at a different time.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think there's a couple of things that you said that I want to touch on. One of them is it's interesting to me when sometimes people get a little bristly about evolutions in yoga that have happened, because from where I sit, for those of you that don't know, I'm an anthropologist and I did my doctoral research on the movement of yoga into the West and the history of yoga. And yoga has always been an evolution and a proliferation and ongoing dialogues. Most of these very old Tamil and Sanskrit texts are Indians, spiritual teachers arguing about the meaning of things. No,
Right,
it's not that.
right,
No, it's
right,
not that. And yet somehow
right.
in these modern iterations, there's so many people that are like, if it's not this path, it's wrong. If it's not
Right.
Patanjali, it's wrong. And I'm like, but that's
Yes.
not what it says. And that's not what they have ever said. And so that's interesting to me because yoga's always been a dialogue and an evolution, number
Mm-hmm.
one. But the other thing that you said was about needing answers. And I relate to that so much. I think most people do, especially those of us that went through any kind of difficulties, we'll say, during
Mm-hmm.
adolescence and
Mm-hmm.
early 20s
Mm-hmm.
period. I needed
Mm-hmm.
to believe that there was people that had figured it out because I was in
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
pain that if there was no hope of getting out of this mess,
Yeah. Yeah.
like you said, I don't think I could have held it together. I needed to believe
Yeah.
someone knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, now that we are the teachers,
Yeah.
uh, holding that responsibly, it feels like an ongoing point of self-inquiry, something that I really try to stay current with myself around, because emotionally, because we need our teachers to, transference is happening. We need
Mhm.
to be able to idealize our teachers to a certain extent when we're in that developmental place. We need to be able to transfer that sense of authority, um, and not be exploited,
And
right?
not be
And
exploited.
so, so now that I'm in the role where I need to be able to hold that from time to time. Okay, it's not recognizing me and my complexity. I'm not an idealizable other. I'm just an everyday asshole, you know? But when I'm in the role of being teacher, I need to, really show up to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then hopefully we mature together and we can enter into other spaces. It's incredible. When I was a younger student, I never would have imagined that I would become a teacher who had friendships with the
Yeah.
people who had been my students. I thought about things so hierarchically, again,
Yeah.
because it's simpler,
Yeah.
right? I was talking with a student recently. When you're hurt, you just want someone to tell you it's okay.
Yeah.
Even if they don't fucking know. Can I say fuck on the show? I hope
Yes,
so.
you can.
They don't know
Almost
that
every episode, I'm like, well, this one's explicit too. Well, this one's
explicit. We're
also explicit.
explicit. It's implicit. It's
It's
explicit.
explicit. Well, I always have
We're
to
doing
tell
it all.
YouTube and stuff, like if it's explicit or if it's clean, which I think is such a funny way to
Mm,
word it. Is it clean
dirty.
or is it dirty? I feel like it should say dirty
No.
instead of explicit.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember
Yeah, it's a
one of
dirty
the
discussion.
episodes, the first ones, I cussed, and then this woman like just ranting at me on YouTube. I respected you. I used to like you. I was going to study with you, but now I know what kind of person you are. And I was like, oh,
Good.
okay. I was like, good. I'm glad
You
that this
should know.
happened
You
before you
should
came.
know.
Yes, which is what we were just talking about. There's this
You
balance
should
between
know.
you should know and also, like,
Mm-hmm.
of course, holding the respectful place of teacher. But I was telling
Mm-hmm.
someone
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, a woman sent me a message on Instagram asking me if I hang out with retreat guests because she has a business coach who
Hmm.
told her you will lose all authority and blah, blah, blah if you're hanging out with your
Oh my
guests
goodness.
and you won't be able to keep your successful image. And I was like, why do you want to keep your
Goodness.
successful image? Like that, like we, one, I think that part of that extremist hierarchical separation that you and I grew up with in the yoga world is partially how cults get started. Because
100%.
the more you position yourself as being not human, and the more that you make it appear that you are other than everyone else, and you're swept out of the room all the time and don't speak to anyone, and no one ever sees your humanity, that positions students to put you on a pedestal in an unhealthy way.
Mhm.
And you start to
Mhm.
believe it about yourself,
Mhm.
potentially.
Mhm.
I'm special,
Mhm.
I'm other. And of course, and I told her, of course I separate myself sometimes because I need to rest. I've been giving a
Mhm.
lot, but it's not because I don't want people to see my humanity. If anything,
Mhm.
I feel like we want people to see this container's big enough
Mm.
to manage your complexity and your pain.
Mm. Mm.
It's not afraid of your dark.
Mhm. Mhm. But I think that's also that's been such a process for me to, in a way, it's like that very kind of feminized um, power play that I can accept myself if you accept me. I
Mm,
think that I've been healed a lot through teaching because I've found that I can accept more of myself because my students accept me.
mm,
And it allows me to be more and more um, honest,
mm,
which is also something I never would have imagined coming out of my yoga practice. Those first years, I really just wanted to refine myself. I felt that I had to refine all of the badness out of me, and then I would be comfortable being in front of people because I wouldn't be bad anymore.
mhm.
Now I realize, no, maybe I'm not a yoga practitioner, but I've been practicing another kind of refinement that just lets me be a baddie and
Yeah.
be a baddie among other baddies. And we get to all have our dirty containers and we
Yeah.
seed each other's microbiomes. And we
Yeah.
have something which is even better than being part of a cult. It's being part of a community.
Mm,
That's even better, but it means tolerating discomfort. It means allowing chaos. It means bearing complexity.
yeah. Yeah.
And and um, and that's a place that I do feel there is radicality in our practices, that it's a place to train for our political lives. It's a place to train for the rest of what's happening in our lives, to be together, to bear discomfort,
Mhm.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
to stay with people who we may not feel are always on our side or just like us, because no one is. And we're like 99% the same as a banana. We're radically different and we're also really the same. We're mostly empty space.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway, I forget what I was trying to address.
We were just talking about community and the fertility
Right.
of messiness and being in
Yes, yes,
complication. And
yes, yes,
um, life is
yes,
very complicated. And that's the thing, too, is when we're younger, we want things to be very black and white. I know I did. People were either very good or they were very bad to me. And I
yes,
also thought that I was bad. Some part of me still does, if I'm honest. It's
yes,
my
of course.
oldest little, everyone has like their I'm unworthy, I'm bad, I'm whatever.
Of
Mine is
course.
100% I'm bad. I used to send like parting gifts to boys that hurt me, literally, because I wanted to make sure that when that when they had like broken up with me and left, that they left like, she's such a good person. I'm like, here's your fruit
I
basket.
totally get that. I really get that. Yeah,
So
yeah.
funny now looking back in my mid 40s, looking back at that girl that was like, I have to send them this book so they know that I care and I'm a good person, and which
And
is
I'm a
not what,
good person.
and I'm a good person.
I'm a good person. Unwinding the karmic knots
Yeah.
around that and the
Yeah.
extreme vigilance and effort to be a good girl,
Yeah.
it's important. It's important for our ancestors. It's important for future generations. It's important for our own intestines.
Yeah.
But it's really having to get in the fucking grundle of it,
Yeah. And I
you
love what
know?
you said about just being baddies with all the other baddies. The thing is,
Yeah.
when you were talking, it was all I could think about. This is so odd, but maybe it's because it's Easter and there's like lamb pictures everywhere. All I could think about was like a
No.
stockyard full of animals. Do you know what I mean? Like to get the
Mm,
production that comes from animals, to get the cheese and the meat and
mm,
the
mm,
wool and all the things. Guess what you have to have? A room full of shit. Oh, that
mm.
has to be cleaned up. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
want all that, you gotta also have a room full of shit that has to be
Yeah, well,
regularly
that's the
cleaned
other
out
side
and
of
tended
having,
to.
yeah, that's the thing. That's the dialectic of having a mouth and an asshole. Whatever you can consume with pleasure in the moment becomes you, and then it becomes the shit that nourishes the earth. And we're
Yeah.
always playing in between. That's what a body is. A body is
Yeah.
between um, the gift and the excrement. You know, it's
Yeah.
always playing in between the thisness and the thatness. And
Yeah.
yeah, life is full of shit.
Yeah. Really is. This is part of why I fell in love with Katoni yoga so quickly when I met Naveed, and was just like hearing this, like, oh, we don't have to be in a dialogue of purity anymore. I'm an
Oh
anthropologist. I
no,
spent so long studying purity in different
purity and
religions and
pollution.
cultures, and purity of
Yeah,
women's bodies, and purity in this, and how it was forming this. And then to be like, and then yoga was so purity based. And then
yeah,
they even so much that they actually have diseases, mental diseases they describe, that are about attachment to purity, which is another form of being impure. I mean, like, and
right.
all of that at one time felt like the structure that was holding me together started to just feel like another
Yes,
thing that was cutting me. I'm never going to be good. I
yes,
chanted the mantra 100,000 times and I'm still
yes.
shit.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep.
And then
There's a really
this.
beautiful,
Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Dages.
sorry?
No, go ahead. There was a little delay, please. It's storming.
Oh,
Last time we tried to do this, I had a Wi-Fi issue. Now Rome, weather's beautiful. It's storming today.
we're living in the precarity of our connection.
Yeah.
Um, what I was going to say was this Hasidic story. I really, it's not a story, it's a parable.
Mm,
Um, about how like what the right size for a person is.
mm,
And so the idea is one should live, I think it was Rabbunim of Pishika or something like this, who had two sayings, one in either pocket. One said, "For me, the universe was created. For me, the universe was created." And in the other, "I'm nothing but a putrid speck. My
mm,
body will become the worms." And
mm.
so between this grandiosity and this utter deflation, this is the right size for a person. And you have them in your two pockets. They're your right and your left. And you're in between. Sometimes you need to dig into that grandiosity when you're feeling
Yeah.
like a little piece of poo. And sometimes you need to really embrace your putrid speckness when you've gotten a little too puffed up. It's the holiday of Passover right now, Pesach. In my tradition, it's all about that. The matzah is this humble bread.
Yeah.
It's perfect in its humility. And the chametz, the thing we're not eating, the leavened bread, that's really the symbol of everything that gets puffed up and inflated. And
Mm.
these are both foods.
That's such a
These are both
beautiful way
foods.
to describe the matzah, and I haven't heard it described that way before. That's so beautiful. I love that. It's
Oh, thank
gorgeous. And happy
you.
Passover.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we also talk a lot about sheep and lambs and blood and effluvia
Oh
during
yeah.
this holiday.
Those stories I know more of. I hadn't heard
Mm-hmm.
that fun metaphor though, of the matzah and the leavened bread, the puffed upness and the humility of the matzah. That's really beautiful. All I was
It's
just thinking
interesting
about now is
because,
that I miss Jewish delis in New York.
oh, yes, 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 I'm sorry. But you do get those nice Jewish artichokes in Rome.
I do. I had one yesterday.
Mm,
Sorry, carry on. You were talking about something important. I'm like, pastrami.
this pastrami is important, absolutely. Um, no, I was going to say it's interesting too. The letters for matzah and chametz, the leavened bread, they're the
Yeah.
same letter, with the exception of a letter that's called a chet, which is a shape. If you could see, it's like this.
Yeah.
It's making like a little hut,
Like it. Yeah.
and then the letter hey. So versus, and so the hey is the same shape but with a little space between the roof and the wall.
A little more height.
And so a little air. And so there's something really profoundly true, that the only difference between being really puffed up and really laid low, it's just a little puncture.
Yeah.
It's
Mm.
just a little puncture. And it's painful when
Hmm.
when space has to happen. It's painful.
Hmm.
But if we can, I think this is the piece of engaging with intensity, or even one might say pain in certain practices. It's, can I open to the experience just a little? Can I dilate just a little bit? Can I create just a little space, just a
Yeah.
little aliveness? And there, all kinds of things start to become possible
Yeah. Yeah.
in our fascia, in our psychology, in our
Yeah.
relationship. Can I take the time to give a little space? And for me, that's what these practices are. They're recipes of duration, time, and location, space,
Yeah.
and letting them dilate open.
Yeah. Absolutely. And because the body, I was talking about this yesterday, um, on the gram, the body is the unconscious mind. Like so much of the unconscious
Mm,
mind is the body. Like 5% of our consciousness, conscious awareness is like what we operate out of. And it's based on all this information that the subconscious mind is collecting all the time. So we take in millions of bits
mm,
of information
mm-hmm,
every
mm-hmm,
second.
mm-hmm,
And they
mm-hmm,
say, and at some point this will probably be outdated, that it's distilled down to plus or minus 7 bits of information, and all the rest of it goes every second. Where does
mm,
it go? Into
mm-hmm,
the unconscious. And the
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
body, like the
Yeah,
last, I think it in one of Peter Levine's books that's based on some research, it's like 3/10 of a fraction of a second before the conscious mind can register anything, the body was already there.
yeah,
Body's
yeah,
already,
yeah,
so
yeah,
in a lot of ways, the body is the unconscious. And when we're
yeah.
operating out of habituation and pattern all the time, which we are, because everything it's automatized. My brain's
Mm-hmm,
trying to switch between languages. Uh, it's automatic. And
mm-hmm,
when we do practice, like for me, I'm informing the unconscious. And, I
mm-hmm,
love how Naveen always says, in time,
mm.
the feelings will change. And at first I was always like, I don't know how I feel about that. But over time, I'm like, it does, because if the body is the unconscious mind, then every time I'm making space in the body and reframing and rewiring, that little puff of
Mhm,
air you're speaking of, that tiny little
mhm,
dilation,
mhm,
has
mhm,
expanded space for something else to
mhm,
come out of the
mhm,
unconscious, to be repatterned,
mhm,
so that 5% can
mhm,
be a little different in whatever way.
mhm. Right. And then I think part of knowing, these are practices, they evolve, hopefully they evolve. You keep getting new recipes. Otherwise, it's just too boring. You
Yeah.
keep learning new recipes. You cook until you die. You practice until you die. It's a lifetime practice. It's not a product. It's not a
Yeah.
perfection. You don't perfect it. You refine, but you do again and again and again and again forever, like breathing.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's not to think that the implicit should become explicit, that the
Hmm.
body, in scare quotes, should not be unconscious, right? That the
Yeah.
body should somehow, everything should be revealed. Bullshit.
No, absolutely
Can't
not.
be.
No.
And whatever it is that becomes conscious
Hmm.
over time becomes unconscious again. It's
That's
like
right.
you had to learn how to um, read.
Yeah.
You had to make a lot of effort to learn how to read. Now you can never not read.
That's right. Yeah.
So it becomes unconscious.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's great. I want to be able to continue reading. But other habits too.
Yeah. That's right.
gestural gestural habits also, things that end up being a pain in the ass because you've been doing it this way so long you don't even realize
Hmm.
that it was ever a choice. I don't know how much free will we have. I don't know how much choice we have. But on the physical level, we certainly have some.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, slowing things down enough to notice, where have I gone unconscious again?
Yeah.
Where has
That
my consciousness gone unconscious again?
And if you don't believe what we're saying, there was this guy who made a backwards bicycle. You can look this up. He spent all this time building a bicycle that operated backwards, and then he had to learn how to ride it. And then after he
Oh
learned how
my
to ride it,
God.
he couldn't ride a normal bicycle again. Could not.
Oh my God.
He had
Oh
trained.
my God.
So, because what was conscious became unconscious again, he had to retrain how to ride a normal bicycle. You can look it up. Like, it's on YouTube. It's on, like, wild. Couldn't remember how to ride a bicycle
That's
because he had
fascinating.
retrained it. So it's this constant, like the moon cycles, it remember, forget, something else is
Right,
revealed,
right, right,
forgotten,
right.
an eclipse.
Right, right,
Like
right.
it's that like
Right,
endless dance. And there's nothing to figure out. Like that's the big
right.
thing, that when I was younger, I was like, I'm gonna figure it out, whatever it is,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
the pain's
Yep,
not gonna
yep,
be there. And
yep.
really it's just like, no, there's nothing to figure out, there's nothing to fix, there's nothing to It's just here. It's just happening. Mind the
Yeah,
meaning you make of
don't
it.
yes, yes. I mean, don't figure it out is one of my personal slogans to myself. It's like I need to wake up in the morning and just see that, like, thank you, I'm alive, and don't figure it out.
Don't figure. Right. It's true. My One of my best friends, Megan, at her Harlem apartment for years and years, she moved to Virginia a couple years ago. But during the COVID years, or before the COVID years, I mean, her apartment for years, there was just this sign over the door that just said "Do the next right thing" when I would leave, and I would stay with her
Beautiful.
all the time when I was in New York studying Katona yoga. And every time I would walk out the door, I would look up and I would be like, "Okay." Like nothing to figure out, but just like, what's the next right thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. The nothing to
That's that
figure
little
out
gap.
thing. The gap. Yeah, just the little,
That's the little gap.
a little space, a little pause. Yeah, yeah. So, you have a new breath course coming out, and you wrote a breath book,
I
and you made breath cards that I got
did.
to see a
I
sneak peek
did.
of when you were in Sicily last year. Tell us about your new breath deck and your breath cards and your
Oh,
breath,
thank
beautiful
you.
things.
Thank you. I was just trying to shoot some B-roll. I have an angel person from heaven who's helping me with these things that are not so first nature to me. So I was trying to get some footage of like playing with the cards. Um, it's a deck of cards, a standard deck of cards, 54, based on the old numbers magic
Yeah.
of playing poker.
Hmm.
And I've divided that. And then there are a couple wild cards. I used to call them trump cards, but not anymore. Now they're just wild cards. I'm really obsessed with the wild cards. They're dark horses. I made them some super weird practices. But the other ones, I think I had in mind, this is like for anyone who wants to play with breath. I think at this stage, it's still pretty much people who already have a kind of exposure to these breath manipulations because they're they're they go through four suits. So there are practices that are really really obvious. Like if you think about someone doing breath work, one of those big kundalini things, you're moving your arms around, you're sticking your tongue out, you're huffing and puffing. So from a suit that's both audible and visible to those that you can see but not hear, so you can do them when your baby's sleeping, those that you can not see but can hear. I love these as a New Yorker. They're the ones you can do in the subway.
Uh-huh.
And then ones that you can't see and can't hear. So you can do
Hmm.
them when you're talking to someone who's pissing you off or you're waiting in line for something. Um, Very subtle practices. So it's nobody's business that you
Yeah.
have a technique to stay anchored in your sensation, in the rivers of perception that you call by your name, that you can stay inside of your own embodied experience regardless of the circumstances you find yourself in. So I wanted to make these practices that you could, like, I wanted it analog. I wanted it to be something you physically do with your hands. Like smoking, you do it with your hands. There's some combination between tactility and somatic immediacy. And also, I wanted something that, please God, for 5 minutes, I'm not on the phone.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes, I pull a card, I engage with my eyes on a flat surface, and they're really beautiful objects. I
They
must
are
say,
really
we spent,
beautiful. They're very
thank
colorful and
you.
beautiful. And I got
Yes,
to sneak peek these last year and they're
yes,
super pretty. And I was like, oh, I can't wait till those come out. You're gonna have to bring one to
thank
Sicily that I
you.
can purchase off of you when you come. Leave it
Absolutely.
with
Yeah,
Renata
I'm
for
always
me.
going to have, yes, I'm always going to have a second bag where I'm schlepping them around. Let me see if I can show you. They have a new design also. We have this really beautiful ombre that's
So
happening.
pretty. It's gorgeous. If
And
you're
what I
listening to the
did,
audio, it's
thank
like a pink
you.
to purple beauty. If you're on YouTube, you can see it. But if not, it's and the back is orange and pink.
But we've renamed them, so forget this name.
Oh, okay. I won't. Yeah, if you're watching that, that's not what it's called.
Shh. Yeah. So yeah. So and it was a really fun process. I worked with Jason Bacasa, who's just like the most amazing designer. And it's been years we've been working on this together. He's very magical when it comes to color. And so I did an illustration of my inner experience when I do this breath practice. What does it feel like inside? And I'd send them to him. and we took the tattvas, the tantric elements, the five
Mhm.
elements, and kind of used them. Is the practice an earthy one? Is it a watery one? Is it an airy
Nice.
one? Right? And then we built around that. Um, and so on one side, you have this image of my understanding of the my embodied experience of the practice. Then
Yeah.
you have a description of the practice in what I hope is pretty straightforward language. We'll see. We're in our beta mode, so you'll let me know. Um, and then on the other side you have the number, and it's kind of laid out like dice, and I find them, when I look at them, they slow me down, they make me curious, I want to look at it, I want to spend 3 minutes doing something. It makes it very direct, and they're small. You can stick them in your bag or keep them next to your bed, or if you happen to be a yoga teacher, you
Yeah.
can bring them to your yoga class, and
Yeah.
then you don't have to choose what breath work you're going to do. You draw a card.
Which is so fun. We did that in Sicily and I loved it because
Exactly.
when I first started teaching breath work a bazillion years ago in pranayama, I followed very specific formulas that my Tantra lineage teachers told me had to be followed at this time of day and with this and da 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 da. And at some point, that gets very stale, as we talked about. Like when things are too formulaic over time, you become. T.S. Little talks about it. It's like you get attached to the raft and forget to get in the water. You're just like tending to you're like
Mm.
gluing the raft and coloring the raft and prepping the raft, and you forget to like get in the water and play and
So
cross and
true.
with asana or with anything. And this idea of just being so playful with it. Like, I don't need to be so specific and be so remedial about, like, oh, what breath
Yeah.
do I need today? But instead, like, what happens? Let's play a little.
But that's also the thing about being a beginner. And Naveen really encouraged me when I showed her the first version. She was like, "This is like a AP course in physics, and people just need a little bit of science. Like, let's pull it back, sister. What's the inhale? What's the exhale? And just say what it's for." And when
Yeah.
I first started practicing breath,
Yeah.
that's what it was for me. I had this incredible teacher. Her name was Deborah Noble. Thank you, Deborah. She taught our anatomy and physiology class, and she put these breath formulas on the board. And it was like, if she wrote it in blue, it was soothing. If
Mm,
she wrote it in pink or whatever, it was stimulating. And then there was
yeah.
one that was balancing.
Yeah.
And it was literal formulas.
Yeah.
Inhale for this amount, hold for this amount. It was extremely formal and
Yeah.
didactic
Yeah.
and linear,
Yeah.
and it saved my
Yeah,
fucking
you
life
need it. I
because I did
start
those
my
practices.
breath training starts that way. I'm saying all this like, and then you got to let it all go. But we're talking about an advanced practice.
Right, but that's the thing. When you get to a point where you can be like, "Oh, what does this do for me?"
Hmm.
Then you're already not a beginner. And so that's why I was
That's
saying
right.
initially I wanted these to be for everyone, but I don't think they are. I made my
Yeah.
concessions. I was like, this one is soothing, this one's stimulating, but I don't know. What
No,
is it for you? What
Kapalabhati
is it for you, the
can be
practitioner?
clearing for someone or can be, calming. Like
Yes.
everyone doesn't have the same reaction, even to things that scientifically should create a parasympathetic or a sympathetic reaction. Like alternate nostril breathing is parasympathetic. It makes some people feel like they're suffocating and they panic.
Yes.
So that is not a calming
Yes.
response. And when you tell everyone, like, no, this calms you down, then you're like back to I'm bad and I'm broken. It doesn't work on me.
Then you're gaslighting your
Yeah.
students. It's like, what's the agenda that we're bringing into the room? Is
Right.
my agenda that you do what I say
Yeah.
and that you'll feel how I want you to feel? I hope not. Then I'm doing
Yeah.
something else. I'm doing something, but I don't know if it's what I want to be doing. Those aren't really the
Right.
highest values that I hold,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
That's a big thing too, because back now we're full circle again, but those early very tight yoga spaces that so many of us operated in, it was very like, you should be feeling this way. This should be doing this to
Hmm.
your behavior.
Hmm.
This should be doing
Yes.
this. And then when you couldn't meet that despite practice, it was such a, well, what else is wrong with me because I can't get
Hmm.
there, or this is
Hmm.
impacting me differently. And um,
Hmm.
being in the space that I'm in, and I hear from you and Marco and some other Katona teachers in particular that I know now, it's just so much more of an embracing of our full humanity and the messiness and the how is this feeling for you and well, let's try something else. Like it's just the goal is harmonization and to be in touch with the part of us that is a little more curious and a little kinder and a little more
Yes.
compassionate more of the time. And so I don't care
Yes.
what that looks like, whether it's me doing some breath practice or it's asana or it's a dance class or it's a good conversation or like
Hmm.
any of it. To me, that's it's all the yoga, it's all the harmonization, it's all
Hmm.
the same dialogue.
And I am so with you. And I think it is also about, it's about growing the fabric of
Mm,
the self. It is about taking a bit more room. So it's not just can I integrate it? Can I harmonize it? It's also, can I expand
yes, be more
to
dimensional.
really, to be more dimensional, to
Hmm.
allow more of what is
Hmm.
to be,
Yep.
to allow more reality.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. There was this breath work teacher's name I can't think of right now. He was a psychologist and he wrote, I mean, some of it was a bit extreme for me, but there's always a good idea in there we can pull on. But he talked about
Snack
that
on it.
part of why we suffer is because we make things wrong. So we make stuff that
Mm,
exists and like, well, it's here, so it's not wrong, it's here. Like
mm,
that
mm,
plant is dying, that whatever, it's here. And as long as we're resistant to that reality, which now that's very Buddhist ideology, we're suffering increasingly because we can't let it be what it is. We can't let it just
mm-hmm,
let the cycle
mm-hmm,
happen and accept that it's there.
mm-hmm,
And that's
mm-hmm,
been, all the way back to our black and white conversation and our I need
mm-hmm,
answers and da da da. That's been the process for me of maturation in my
mm-hmm,
practice and in my life has been
mm-hmm,
being able to accept reality as it is and
mm-hmm,
build a
mm-hmm,
fabric that's big enough to go, like, it's okay that I'm sad. It doesn't mean something's wrong. It's okay that this is
mm,
going on. I
mm.
don't have to go to war against my life or rebel against it. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To accept your own protest,
yeah.
it's like there's the reality and then there's the way I feel about it.
Hmm.
And yeah, growing some capacity to befriend the protester,
Yeah.
the one who
Yeah.
says, no, you know, I want
Absolutely
to be
not.
grateful. I want to be grateful. I want to be graceful. It's like, okay, okay. Can I
Exactly.
hold hands with that petulant piece that already knows how I should be in relation to that reality?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I think there's a way in which we get to, going back to the conscious and unconscious play. It's like you get to pursue whatever you want, but you don't have a lot of control over what you want.
Hmm. That's right.
So there's this beautiful concept, very Jewish today. It's the holiday. There's a beautiful concept in our tradition that comes from the way that the oral tradition is studied,
Mm.
and there's something inside of it called a machlokas, which is like it's a statement where uh, people, two sides are fighting over a question. They're taking two approaches to it, and it doesn't get reconciled by one being right.
Mm.
It's reconciled by the two being, this one and this one are both the voice of heaven. They're both the word
Mm.
of God. This one and this one. That's that triangulation. That's that
Hmm.
complexity of that which reconciles through being in complexity with, rather than trumping.
Yes.
Trumping's the old way.
Yeah. Please, the old way sooner rather than later.
But even, even this piece of myself that wants to say, oh, like the black and white, I'm done with that, now I'm doing gray stuff. So even between the
Yeah.
black and white and the gray stuff, that's its own dance. It's like how much liminality, how much ambiguity can I develop an ongoing relationship with?
Right, because too much liminality and too much ambiguity, you're lost. It's like the chord's cut in space, right? Like sometimes we do have to put our
Mm,
feet down. Like that's not, and of course, it's all well and good to say that I'm moved less from, more away from being an extremist black and white thinking, but it doesn't mean I don't wake up that way sometimes,
yeah,
where I get
exactly,
broken or get,
exactly.
like I'm going through a heartbreak right now. I wake up in the morning sometimes
Oh,
and I'm like, what an asshole. And my
of
wiser brain
course.
is like, no, you're objectifying someone and people are more complex. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm like,
okay. Yeah, of
yeah, but
course.
this
Of
morning we're in the
course.
black and white. So even as
Yeah.
we know and we're like tending to the wise part of our, wiser part of our mind, and then
Yeah.
back into a more adolescent part or whatever, like this, none of it goes
Yeah.
away. Like it's not, we learn to hold all of it better, to express ourselves better, to be less reactive, to be kinder, but we don't get rid of the parts of ourselves that are messy. And we, in fact, accumulate new reasons to be messy along the way.
We get even dirtier.
Even dirtier. Exactly. I love it.
Yeah, the letting go thing, it's interesting because on the one hand, nothing goes anywhere.
No.
You know, we have a fantasy that there's an over there. We have a fantasy that we can throw our garbage away.
That's a big fantasy, isn't
Where?
it? Where?
Where does it go?
Well, all of our
Um,
old clothes are in Nigeria, like in Uganda. And yeah, right. Where does it go?
so where does it go? And so even in a more personal way with ourselves, we have a lot of like woo language in the kind of wellness industry of like, what doesn't serve you anymore? Really? Do things have to serve you? But then what do you do with things that don't serve you anymore?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just this way of thinking already, it's so objectifying, which we will do anyway. You're absolutely right. When we're in pain, that's where we're going to go. That's what a mind does. Thank you,
Yeah.
mind. That's your
Yeah.
job. But when I'm in my practice,
Yeah.
then I want to de-objectify. I
Correct.
want to subjectify.
That's right.
I
Yep.
want to put myself in the center of my subjectivity,
Yep.
take responsibility for this guy,
Yep.
and let everyone else have their own life just for an hour,
Yep.
you know, just 20 minutes in the morning. Put
Yep.
myself in the center of my own experience. Let everyone else do their thing. And from that space of subjectivity, um, yeah, there's a possibility of letting go differently. The
Yeah.
letting go is not getting rid of or throwing away. Letting go is an exhalation.
It is.
That's
Yep.
literally what it is.
Yep.
And that,
How I
and an
start my breath work
exhalation,
training. I'm like, the exhale is the practice in letting go. It is the release. It's the little death over and over again.
it is. And when I exhale, this friend inhales.
That's right. She's holding a plant
It
if you're listening to
fits.
the audio only.
Yes.
A very
Little
cute plant.
friend,
A little
a
plant.
very sweet person.
A very
And so
sweet
we have a dialogue.
That's right.
And it's not that I'm my bad out breath, that I want to go into. No,
Yeah.
it's a different orientation. It's a different way of play. I mean, in Katona yoga, we talk so much about polarity and binary. It's not to get it twisted. It's
Yeah.
not to think that binary is separate. They cut together.
That's right.
Right? It's
Yeah.
an ongoing process. The waxing moon, the waning moon, it's the same moon.
Yeah.
New moon, full moon, same moon. It's the relationship that has changed. We see it from a different angle. It's triangulating with the sun and the planet. It's
Yeah.
always more than that.
That's right. One of the ways I think about this a lot, it's just the weirdest example, but every time I'm in the Uffizi in Florence, when you're walking through there, it's organized by the centuries. So it's the 14th century and then the 15th century, and the painting style is different. And it gives the delusion, if you're walking from room to room, that on the day that the 1500s started, everyone started painting with a different color blue. Like, do you know what I
Mm.
mean? And it's always this
Mm-hmm,
analogy
mm-hmm.
that
That's
I
right.
have in my mind about life, because we do that. We're like, oh, well, and then this, now this, and it ignores all of the slow process of that
That's right.
introduction of paint color and why women were painted differently, or how
Right.
God was being thought of differently. And so God had to be
Right.
portrayed differently, because you're seeing it in these blocks of rooms. And it reminds me of that play of
Mm-hmm,
polarity when you first step into the
mm-hmm,
Katona world, and you're thinking about binaries and polarities and paradox, and then
mm-hmm.
your understanding starts to evolve and you're like, oh, it didn't just change in the 1500s. It wasn't a
Right.
switch. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm letting her
Yeah.
think.
It
The
seems,
eyes are
and
moving. I was like, she's imagining. I was like, I'm gonna let her think. If you're listening, you're like, that's a very long pause. I'm watching Dages'
no,
face. I'm like, I'm gonna give her a
I
second.
was, yeah, thank you. Thank you. No, I was thinking because this is one of the things that's so amazing about doing physical practice and working with our bodies is
Yeah.
that things happen really slowly and by accretion and then all at once, right?
Yeah.
So an injury, for example, nothing ever comes from nowhere.
Hmm.
It always comes from somewhere, and that somewhere, it's a long history, you know.
Yeah.
It goes all the way back before the dinosaurs. Everything started a long time ago. So it's not, it's not about how could it be prevented. It's recognizing, okay, it was all very slowly, and now boom, something is different. And in an instant, something can be different. It doesn't matter how long my closet door has been closed. As soon as I
Yeah.
empty it, it's a different experience.
Yep. That's
And
right.
that level of direct experience that we have through our organs, through embodied practice, that's one of the reasons it can be so exhilarating and addictive
Hmm.
and paradigm shifting, because it's like, holy shit, it's real. If I do something, something will change.
Hmm. Which is
And
very
there's the
empowering
aspect, it is.
to
And there's
realize,
the
oh, I
aspect
can
of what
change something.
changes. Yeah, some things will, yes, like everything else, it changes over time, and then other things all at once. You know,
Yeah.
there's the
Yeah.
aspect where you see like, oh, it's slowly the ideas are trickling through and we're getting these different pigments, and then other things, it's like boom,
Yeah.
suddenly lungs to the front, suddenly, oh,
Hmm.
that's pubis forward. Or you
Hmm.
use one of these kind of esoteric strategies of the magic square, and you magic square your lungs, and oh my
Yeah.
oh my god, it really is the size of a tennis court,
The
you
aha
know.
moment. Yeah. The just
The
like that, the
aha
bam, the
moment.
clash of lightning, the awestruck moment when you're sitting somewhere and an idea
Yeah,
falls, or you're sitting outside
yeah,
on a hike and all of a sudden there's just like a lightning strike,
yeah.
idea that pops in, those little shining moments. And it is easier via the body. I mean, it's easier for me via the body. I won't speak for anyone else, but like anytime I can put something in my body, it's quicker.
Because that's where your mind is anyway.
Yeah.
So
We're back to the
to
body is
have
the unconscious.
yeah, so when you have that sense like, oh shit, like it fits, my mind fits in my body, they're the same, my breath fits in my mind, fits in my body, it's the same, my breath and my mind and my body are on the planet, it's the same thing,
Yeah,
it fits,
it
it's
fits.
organized, it's not just the chaos that my mind will spin out
Yeah,
when I feel disconnected.
that's
The
right.
practices are those of connecting.
That's right.
And then those insights, those aha moments, when I feel them, that's the ping of joy.
Hmm.
That's the sound of the applause.
Hmm.
And it's very soothing.
It is very soothing. Yeah. And
Yeah.
it sticks with you once it's there, once it's landed in the body. Like
Yeah.
anything you
Yeah.
put through the body, embodied learning it becomes real knowledge instead of just like you can read about the stuff we're saying all day long. I can give you, you know, books on on the Kabbalah, books on this, books on that. But until it's like embodied knowledge, you don't own it and you won't have the
Right.
applause and the ping of joy and the aha moment in it until it's like lived experience. And that's the joy and the work of it. Yeah.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. Love this, all of this. We're almost out of time. Is there anything you desperately want to tell the people in the next 10 minutes?
Uh,
Is there
well,
anything that you're
thank
like,
you.
I need
Thank
to say
you.
this to the people?
Oh, no. Well, thank you, the people, for being interested in this conversation. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed getting into the goodies with you,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Always.
sharing our notes from the
Notes
field of
from
our
the
own
field.
practice, the field of our teaching, the field of our studentship. It's so important to have a friend. It's so
Yeah.
important to talk things out in your, especially, I think maybe that's what I have to say, especially if you're coming into these practices as a younger person, or as a person with a lot of need. And many of
Yeah.
us do come into these practices because we feel hurt and broken.
Yeah.
We're vulnerable. Um, it's so important to talk about your experience with other people who
Yeah.
can help you um, to take gentle care
Yeah.
as you get exposed to ideas that may be very therapeutic
Yeah.
or may be inappropriate for you at the time, and
Yes.
just because a world has healing in the title,
Yeah.
um, it doesn't mean it will not disappoint. So
That's right.
there's a Navinism that I really like,
Mm.
which is it's not to think that the world is trustworthy. It's developing the capacity to trust yourself to handle the world.
It's one of my favorite
And
Navinisms also. It's a
it's a
good one.
real, it's a real, it's a real goodie. And I remember I would cry to her when I first met her, like, why didn't I find you when I was younger? I prayed and I prayed for an embodied female teacher, you know, and I didn't meet her until I'd been teaching already for over 10 years and practicing for longer and having
Same.
the experiences that people go through.
Yeah.
Um, Read all about it on the Substack. Just kidding.
No, do. It's
Um,
great.
it's a journey. It's been interesting to write about and revisit. I'm not done. There's part 5 that's in progress.
Yeah.
But it's easier to trust yourself when you're in dialogue with someone else, and it's not all just happening in your head. You're not
That's
trying
right.
to hold it all together, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. We need
So
people to
I think,
reflect off of. I love, there's this old tantric southern Indian myth about Kali and, the triadic goddess that is, the human consciousness and the human body. But the Kali's yoga part says that it's such a beautiful little myth that we're all little, it reminds me of the Kabbalah myth actually about the light in the vessels that was scattered.
mm-hmm,
So it says that
mm-hmm,
we're little flowers in Kali's garden, that we fell as grace. And now we're these little, she's the dark embodiment, the primordial. And, in the
mm-hmm.
Southern Indian temples, she's just black eyes on a wall. There's no drawing of the goddess. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
black wall
I
and its
love those.
eyes.
I love those.
So
So
good.
metal. It's
It's
so
so
cool.
it is. I love it. But it says that, Kali's yoga is just this act where like little bees and we go gather up all our experiences of joy and revelry and
Mm,
rage and pain and everything you can imagine, all it
mm.
says, the flavors they call them. And then you bring them back to the kula and you vomit them up because that's what bees do in the
Yeah,
hive. They
that's what they
vomit
do.
it up. And
Big pukers.
then
Big
they,
pukers.
they're big pukers. And then together, the bees gnaw and do their work together on these
Mm,
partially
mm,
digested experiences. And it becomes the honey that
mm.
nourishes the whole.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that's really good. I'm gonna chew on that for a while.
Chew
It's
away, vomit it up, share it with
super.
a friend.
Yeah, I'll vomit some of that up when I teach class on Monday. See how it goes over.
I've been saying it in class for like 10 years and everyone's always very
It's
smitten with it.
really
I think
good.
it'll be great.
Yeah,
Every once in a while,
yeah, yeah,
someone kind
yeah,
of looks at me like this, glad, like, what?
yeah,
But most of the time, everyone's
yeah.
like, that's so beautiful. Yeah. So,
It's really good.
yeah. And I love
Thank you.
just the engagement that we're meant to have every experience. It's all for us, in its own way. And I'm not
Mm,
obviously,
mm,
terrible things happen to people and we all are mature enough to realize that's not what I mean or what I'm saying. But like, life is life. All of these things are possible. The pain is possible. The wound is possible. And anyway, just yes, what you said about being in dialogue. And just because something was therapeutic at one time doesn't mean it has to be forever,
hmm.
I would
That's
say,
right.
because
Or
I don't,
because something was. Mhm.
oh, I don't regret any of my experiences I had really, even regret maybe isn't the right word, but I need, like you said, I needed to be in those spaces that I was in, the yoga spaces I was in.
Mm. Let me share one last Navinism as
Do
I
it.
understand it. It has to do with this concept of the drishti of joy,
Hmm.
right? Like the orientation of your eyes where you see joy in front of you.
Hmm.
And this is really like culty language, excuse me for it, but it's like when you have the drishti of joy, it's like you're in your vehicle, you're looking out, you see one lane on your left, one lane on your right, one lane in front of you. And when you're organized in the center, you look in the rear view mirror, and she would say that you have the reflection of gratitude.
I'm dying laughing because whatever you just did, Zoom decided you needed
I just saw
fireworks
that.
around you, and it was the perfect
That was,
moment because you were like, "There's
yes.
joy behind." If you're listening and not watching, something she did, her computer turned into fireworks behind her, and the screen went black right as she said, "And the joy," and she was gesturing so big, surrounded by the universe and fireworks. It's
Yes, but
amazing.
that's it exactly. And the way I've really felt it in my life is through my heart. Like
Yeah.
when I go through a breakup, it guts me, it destroys me. I suffer so much when my heart is broken. I can't. and then it feels like you'll never come out, you'll never come out. And then slowly and all at once, you fall in love again.
Yep.
And when you're in love, you look back on everything that happened to you. You look back on every time your little heart pieces were crumpled on the floor, and you bless them and you say, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because now my heart is open in a way it never was.
That's right.
My heart didn't break, it opened.
That's right. Yeah. That's what the
Yeah.
Douglas used to say, that when you heal a broken heart, you love all the more deeply because you have felt all the more deeply when you go forward. But also,
Oh,
when you started saying that, all I heard was Bjork singing, "It's oh so quiet." Shh. That, you know, that song where she's like, and then
no.
you fall in love, and then the big band starts playing.
Oh, yes, 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 yes,
Yeah.
yes,
The
yes,
minute you're talking, I just heard Bjork.
yes.
It's oh so quiet. Shh. It's oh so still. Shh. It's so true.
It's all so quiet, and then
Yeah.
it's all so loud. It happens so slow,
And the
and then all
drishti
at
of joy
once.
thing too, it's so simple actually. One more thing, because it's so related to neurology and neuroplasticity. And so I love that, I mean, I've heard that for so long from her, but it's like backed up by neuroplasticity and neuroscience, because a memory, all you ever have access to, you know, we so poorly understand memory. Like neuroscience is still constantly that we don't understand memory. But what we do know is it's like a Word document. You only ever have access to the last edits. You know, like it, yes. And this is true. You only ever have access to the last edits that you pulled up. So you open the
Mm,
Word document and you go to change one spelling and you change a sentence. And now the next time you open it, you don't remember what that sentence said 2 openings
so
ago.
true.
And it keeps
That's why I
evolving and
always save
evolving.
drafts.
Yeah. Unless you save all of your drafts in separate files. But that's not how your memory
Like a
works.
nope, nope, and that's why you do it in Google Drive.
And eventually, though, drishti of joy, you're reopening the Word file over and over again, and it's getting edited, it's getting edited, it's getting edited, and then you look back at the memory
Mm,
differently because you're different and you see things and
interesting.
perceive things differently. I mean, memory, like people, married people share a memory that spend a lot of time
Hmm.
together, you know, or maybe I know I've told my
Hmm.
parents about something that I'm like, oh, you remember? And my parents are like, you weren't born yet when that happened.
Hmm.
And I could
Mm,
swear
mm,
to God, I could tell you about this event that
mm,
happened. And they're like, no, you weren't alive. We were there. We've just told
mm,
you about that. And that's how faulty our memory is. But that also means that it's
mm,
very potent, that we can reconsolidate memory, rewrite memory,
mm,
change the way in which we perceive things. And
mm,
I find that very hopeful, actually. Like all this drishti
mm.
of
Yeah,
joy
it's
stuff and all
beautiful.
that. It's very hopeful to me that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
can,
because you keep driving.
yeah,
And as long as you're driving, you keep reorienting.
yeah,
As
yeah,
long as you're breathing until that one time you don't inhale again after exhaling.
yeah.
And that's one time. Like the
One
odds
time.
are really good that you let go now, you'll inhale again,
Yeah,
you're going to keep driving, you
yeah.
get to keep reorienting.
Yeah. And the perfect way to end this is that's the little puff of air above the letter.
That's the puff.
It's the
That's
puff.
the puff of air is an exhalation. The puff of air is the letting go.
Yeah. Yeah. Dages, thank you so much. There are links in, I'm pointing like it's below. There, I'm so used to being on Instagram stories. The link is here. In the show notes, there's a link to Dages's website. I don't pay for yoga subscriptions to really anyone, but I am a patron subscription for Dages. I have to admit,
Oh.
I rarely look at it, but it's comforting knowing it's there. And when I, not because it's not so good, I just don't have a lot of time. But when I do
Oh
occasionally want to
yeah.
be led, if I'm like, I want to be led, I pop open a class from her and there's tiers to it. So it's very
Oh,
accessible. Highly recommend. And it gets
thank
you
you.
access to her
Thank you.
Substack as well. And Dages has beautiful retreats and trainings around the world. 10 out of 10. Yelp review 10 out of 10. So you can find out more about Dages below, and she's on all the places where people always are, you know, the gram and all of that. Thank you so much,
Where the
Dages, for
yoga
being
is.
here. We're the yoga, the real yoga. I'm just kidding. Thank you so much, Dages.
Thank you, Selena.